Oh, okay. Okay. Daled. If drawn water and rainwater became
Hold
mixed,
on, hold on. Isn't that where I start today?
mi-
Uh,
mi-
no, no, you're
drawn-
right. You are right. Go on.
if drawn water and rainwater become mixed in a courtyard or in a ditch or in the case steps of a cave, when the majority is valid water, the mikvah is valid. But when the majority is invalid water, the mikvah is invalid. Half and half, it's invalid. When so? When they became mixed before they reached the mikvah. When, however, they flow directly into the water, if it is known that 40 saw of water fell in before 3 lugim of drawn water came down, the mikvah is valid. Otherwise, it's invalid. Regarding a trough in a rock, one may not fill into it, nor may one consecrate on it, nor may one sprinkle out of it, nor one does require a sealed cover, nor does it disqualify a mikvah. But if it was a vessel and one attached it to the ground with mortar, then one may fill into it and one may consecrate it in it and one may sprinkle out of it. And it requires a sealed cover and it disqualifies a mikvah. If it has a hold on the bottom or on its side so that it cannot hold any water at all, it's valid. How large must the hole be? The size of a tube of a water skin. Rabbi Yehuda ben Basera says that in the case of Yehu's trough in Jerusalem that had a hole the size of the tube of water skin, and all the richly poor feuds in Jerusalem were paid on its basis, Beis Shammai sent and broke it. Beis Shammai said it is not valid until the greater part of it is broken. If water of a spring is directed over a trough, it is invalid. But if it was directed over the edge, even a little, then that which is outside the trough is valid because the spring purifies whatever its amount. If it was directed over a roof, a pool, and it was then interrupted, it is like a mikvah. If it was made to flow again, it remains unfit for zavim and for mitzorim, and for consecrating therefrom purifying water until one knows that the former water has flowed out. Okay, now,
Okay.
now you're on.
Okay. Hevira al gabe kalim, or al gabe safsal. So there was a stream, and it was directed over the top of kalim. Okay, so the kalim were completely submerged, or on top of a bench. Let's say there's a bench submerged inside the stream. Rabbi Yehuda Mer Harehu K'moshe Haya says it makes no difference. It's completely unaffected, and it's a stream for in all matters. Rabbi Yossi Omer Harehu K'mikveh. Everything after the kalim has become like a mikveh. In other words, it has to make a pool, and it has to be the water has to be stationary because it's lost its status of Mayim Chayim, having passed over the kalim. And you're not allowed to tovel anything on top of the bench because that looks like you're toveling it in a kli, and definitely not in the kli itself. Okay, and here actually the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi. I would have guessed not. Maybe I've got sort of the wrong picture in my head. I would have thought that the kalim would not be able to affect the stream, but perhaps we're talking about a case where where the kli is like completely filling the width of your stream, and it's just overflowing and carrying on.
You're on. Right.
So it's not so it's flowing and overflowing, but it's not so it's not Maim She'uvin because it is actually still stream water flowing over, but it's probably over here a gezerah that because it looks like Maim She'uvin or that it doesn't. But if it was a gezerah for Maim She'uvin, then it shouldn't even work as a mikveh. Um, it's a curious situation, but anyway, Kahati says the halacha follows Rabbi Yossi. Okay, Mayan Shehu Mashuch Nadal. So how you've got a stream which branches out with lots of little things coming out. Is like a Nadal is like a centipede.
Right.
So it's got little branches coming out all over the place. Okay, Riba Allah Vahim and it was flowing very weakly. So the guy came along and took a big bucket of water and threw it upstream so that it should spread the water further on. Hareo Kamoshe Haya. This does not affect the kashrus of the stream. The stream is still a stream. The water was flowing before, it's flowing after, it just happens to be flowing stronger. And what's happened is that the stream was metaher the Maim She'uvin. Okay. So Haya Omed, however, if this it was let's say you have this a weak little mountain stream which bubbles up and then kind of stops and it isn't really flowing. Okay, so it just made a little pool. Bariba Allah v'him shecho, and now he pours mayim shovin into it. Shave mikveh l'taher be'eshborin ulemayan lahatbil bo b'chol shehu. So this was what we learned in the first perek. We had this exact case as it's one level above a mikveh, because it is still coming from mayim l'chayim. So it's better than a mikveh because although it's similar to a mikveh in that it can be mataher only when it is stationary, where it's flowing, we're attributing the flow to the mayim shovin. But it's like a mayan because lat bilbo b'kol shehu, you can nonetheless tovel in it even though it's not 40 sa'ah. So you might not be able to get a person into it, or you could get a small person into it, or you could put kalim into it. Okay, so this is the level above a mikveh in that it doesn't have a minimum shear. Okay, Mishnah Daled, Kol hayamim k'mikveh. We learned this, by the way. It's the same mikveh is in para. Okay, it's identical mikveh, Mishnah. Okay, Kol hayamim k'mikveh. All the seas are like a mikveh. Shenemar ula mikveh amayim kara yamim. That's the pasuk in Bereshis, and that's the opinion of Rabbi Meir, that the seas are treated as a mikveh. Now that means that it can only purify in its stationary state. So, for example, Rabbi Meir would not allow you to tovel in a wave that's washing up on the beach, because that's moving. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Hayama Gadol Mikveh. He says only the ocean is a mikveh. Lo nemar yamim ela sheyesh bo mina yamim harbe. So yamim is when you've got lots of different rivers all flowing into the sea. Okay, but if you've got like the Sea of Galilee, the Kinneret is he says would still be considered a mayan. This is according to Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Omer kol hayamim matarin bezochelin upsulin lazavin. So he says that the sea is better than a mikveh because it can purify with flowing water. And according to Rabbi Yossi, you could tovel your kalim in a wave that's washing up on the beach. Okay, matarin bezochelin upsulin lazavin, and it's pasul for zavin. It's not called mayim chayim. Probably because it's salty. Why is it? Why does he say not mayim chayim? So something else. She called elet shrikim mayim chayim ve'en mayim chayim ela may mayanot hanovim. Right. So mayim chayim has to be groundwater. It has to be a spring that's popping up from the ground. It's not the sea is not considered groundwater. It's psulim zavim tzarim ulakadesh mehem meichatas. Does not have this.
It gives an interesting thing. It says, however, the quality of mayim chayim, living water, is not innate in seawater, since it only flows to and from due to the winds, but does not possess any inherent force that causes it to gush like a spring water.
Right. Yeah.
That's
okay. Very good. Thank you very much for that. All right.
All right.
Back to Aleph Hey.
Okay. When do they become purified? Beis Shammai says when they are increased by a greater amount and they also overflow. Beis Hillel says if they were increased by a greater amount, even though they did not overflow. Rabbi Shimon says that they overflowed even though they were not increased by a greater amount, and they are fit for challah and for ritual rinsing of the hands. A higher grade of water in seeps that does not cause seeping, if a Tameh person drank from it, and then a tahor person drank from it, it remains tahor. If a tameh person drank from it and then withdrew from it into a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If a tameh person drank from it and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although he rinsed it, it remains tahor. If one drew from it with a tameh vessel and then a tahor person drank from it, he remains tahor. If one drew from it in a tameh vessel and then withdrew from it into a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If one drew from it with a tameh vessel and then a loaf of truma fell into it, although it rinsed it, he remains tahor. If tameh water fell into it and then a tahor person drank from it, it remains tahor. If tameh water fell into it and then one drew from it into a tahor vessel, it remains tahor. If tameh water fell into it and then a loaf of truma fell into it, and though he rinsed it, it remains tahor. It is fit for truma and for ritual rinsing of the hands. A higher level, grade 4, is the mikveh that contains 40 sa'ah, and in it one may verse oneself, and in it one may verse things. A higher grade level, this is 3, is a spring that has little water, and it was increased by a greater amount of drawn water. It is equal to a mikveh in that it purifies only with still water, and is equal to a spring that not may immerse things therein wherever it's a mouth.
You,
Level
you recognize this one. This is exactly the
right.
case that we just learned this morning. Yeah.
Level 2, a higher grade is boiled spring water, for it purifies also when in motion, and a higher grade of living water, for therein there can be immersed of Savam, and their wind can be sprinkling from Tzorim, and it is fit to consecrate therein for purification water. Okay.
Okay.
Where's my thing go? Yeah.
Okay, back to Toros.
Something in the wrong place. Just let me get this over here. Okay. All right. Toros. Okay, Zion. Slices of dough that cleave to one another, or loaves that cleave to one another. If one of them was contaminated by sheretz, they are all starting level. If they have then come apart, they are all starting level. If they are contracted tumor from liquids, they are all shani, and if they came apart, they are all shani. If they contracted tumor from unwashed hands, they're all slishi, and if they came apart, they're all slishi. If a slice of dough is starting level, when one attach others to it, all of them are starting level. If they separate it, it is starting level, and all the rest of them are shani. If it was a shani and attached to others, they become all shani. If they separated, it is shani, and all the rest of them are shlishi. If it was a shlishi and they attached others to it, it's a shlishi, and all of them are tahor, whether they separated or whether they did not separate. Consecrated loaves that have sacred water in their cavities, if one of them was contaminated by sheretz, they are all tameh. And with truma, it contaminates two and disqualifies one. If between them there is a liquid that can moisten, even with truma, all is tameh. Okay, on to oleos. Het. A cistern inside a house contains a candelabra whose lampstand protrudes upward. An olive pressing basket lies on the lamp shade in such a way that if the candelabra were removed, the olive pressing basket would rest on the cistern. Beis Shammai says the cistern remains tahor and the candelabra becomes tummy, whereas Beis Hillel says the candelabra remains tahor. They all agree that if removing the candelabra causes the olive pressing basket to fall, everything becomes tummy. Utensils that are between the edges of the olive pressing basket and the edge of the cistern remain tahor, even if they are deep within the ground. And if there is tumah inside the cistern, the house becomes tummy. If there is tumah inside the house, utensils that are inside the walls of the cistern remain tahor when they are in an area that is a handbreadth cube. When they are not, they become tummy. If the walls of the cistern extend farther than the house, in either instance, they remain tahor. The board is placed on top of a new oven and extends a handbreadth on all sides. If there's tumor beneath the board, utensils above it remain tahor. And if there's tumor above the board, utensils beneath it remain tahor. However, in the case of an old oven, the oven becomes tameh. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nori says rules are tahor, and if the board is placed on top of two ovens and there is tumor between them, they become tameh, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Nori declares them tahor. And
No, we haven't finished. We've got one more in.
what?
One more.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Bait. A perforated slab is placed on top of an oven.
Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, beg your pardon. You already did Aleph. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Okay, my
Okay.
bad. I drifted off there.
Cooling. Okay. Dalit. And the following are kosher and foul. If the trachea was punctured or slit, if a weasel struck in its head in a place where it does not render a trefa, if the crop was punctured, Rebbe says even if it was removed, if the intestines came out and were not punctured, if the wings were broken, if the legs were broken, or its feathers were plucked, the Yehuda says if the down was removed, it's unfit. An animal that is seized with blood, or that has inhaled smoke, or that was overcome by a cold and ate olinda, or that ate the dung of chickens, or they drank bad water, it's fit. If it ate poison, if it was bitten by a snake, it is permissible insofar as trophy is concerned, but it's prohibited because of danger to life. The characteristics of animals and beasts were stated in the Torah, but the characteristics of fowl were not stated. The sages, however, said any bird that seizes its food is not kosher, and anyone that is an additional toad, a crop, or a gizzard can be peeled is kosher. Reb Eliezer of Tzaddik says any bird that parts its toes is a non-kosher one. Okay.
That's here.
Aleph. Two Nizorim to whom an Israel said, I saw that one of you became Tomei, but I don't know which one of you. They both shaved. and they bring jointly a sacrifice of tumah and a sacrifice of tahara. And one of the Nezirim says, if I am the one who is tameh, the sacrifice for tumah is mine, and the sacrifice for tahara is yours. But if I am the one who is tahor, the sacrifice of tahara is mine, and the sacrifice of tumah is yours. Then they count 30 days and bring jointly a sacrifice for tahara. And he says, if I was the one who was tameh, and sacrifice for tumah was mine, the sacrifice tahara was yours, and if this is my sacrifice tahara. But if I was the one who was tahor, the sacrifice of tahara was mine, the sacrifice of tumah was yours, and this is your sacrifice of tahara. If one of them died, Rabbi Yehuda said he should seek out someone from the street who will vow to be a nazir parallel to him and say, if I was tameh to you as a nazir at once, but if I was tahor to you as a nazir 30 days. They then count 30 days to bring a sacrifice of tumah and a sacrifice of tahara. And he says, if I am the one who is tameh, the sacrifice of tumah is mine, the sacrifice of tahara is yours. But if I am the one who is tahara, the sacrifice of tahara is mine, the sacrifice of tumah is offered as a doubt. Then they count 30 days and bring jointly the sacrifice of tahara. And he says, if I am the one who was tameh, the sacrifice of the tumah was mine, the sacrifice of tahara was yours, and this is my sacrifice of tahara. But if I am the one who was tahor, the sacrifice of tahara was mine, the sacrifice of tumah was offered out of doubt, and this is your sacrifice of tahara. Zoma says to him, and who will listen to him to vow to be a nazir parallel to him? Rather, he brings a bird as a sin offering and an animal as a burnt offering and says, if I was tameh, the sin offering is part of the obligation and the burnt offering is voluntary. But if I was tahor, the burnt offering is part of my obligation and the sin offering is out of doubt. And then he counts 30 days and he brings the sacrifice to tahara and says, if I was tameh, the first burnt offering was voluntary and this one was for my obligation. But if I was tahor, the first burnt offering was for my obligation and this one is voluntary. And then the rest is my offering. I mean, this is the rest of my offering. The Yehuda said it results that this one brings an offering piecemeal, but the sages agree with Beis Zoma. A nazir who was in doubt whether he was tameh and in doubt also whether he was confirmed mitzvah, he may eat sacred foods after 60 days and drink wine and contaminate himself with the tomb of the dead after 120 days because shaving is for the affliction. The taharas override shaving for the zeros when the former is certain, but when it's doubtful, it does not override. Non-Jews do not have the zeros. Women and slaves do not have the zeros. There's an aspect of greater stringency applying to women than to slaves, and one can force his slave to violate his zeros, but he cannot force his wife. There is an aspect of greater stringency applying to slaves than to women, and one can revoke his wife's vows, but he cannot revoke his slave's vows. If he revoked for his wife, he is revoked permanently. If he revoked for a slave, he was free and he completes his zeros. If the slave passed from his master's presence, but Rabbi Meir says he may not drink, but Rabbi Elsie says he may drink. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Bikurim.
If he set aside his Bikurim and they were plundered or decayed, it was stolen or lost, and they were deemed unclean, he brings others in their stead, but does not recite. And the others that are not liable to the added fifth, if they became unclean in the temple court, he scatters them and does not recite. And whence do we know that he is responsible for them until he brings them to the Temple Mount? Because it is written, the first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring to the house of the Lord your God. This teaches that he is responsible for them until he brings them to the Temple Mount. And if he brought one of a kind and recited and then brought of another kind, it does not recite. And these bring and recite from Stefuas until Sukkot, from the seven Shavim, for the fruits of the mountains, from the states of the valleys, from the oil olives from beyond the Jordan. Rabbi Yossi Hagila says one does not bring Bikurim from beyond the Jordan, since it is not a land flowing with milk and honey. Okay.
We're done.
I understand because of the heat today why you ran early. I know.
Yeah. Well, that's much better for summer now.
Okay. Have a great Shabbos. Enjoy.
Shabbos.